Hey guys, welcome back. Today on The Untidy Artist, I'm showing you how to make an angel flower fairy. This was an idea that my sister had, so special thanks to her for inspiring me to do this tutorial. Please check out some of my other flower fairy tutorials. I do have a fun poinsettia Christmas flower fairy coming up, so watch for that. I've had a lot of fun coming up with different flower fairies for different holidays and different flowers, so stay tuned, please subscribe, so you'll be the first to see all of my flower fairy tutorials. Let's grab some supplies and get started. Now the first thing you'll need is actually a flower fairy body, so I'm not going to cover that in this tutorial. To learn how to create a flower fairy out of a wooden bead and a piece of floral wire and some embroidery floss, please check out my video on a basic flower fairy. You can go to that video by clicking on the link up in the corner here. I will also put a link below. In this, I will show you step by step how to create the basic fairy doll body. So if you're new to my flower fairy tutorials, please be sure to check that out and learn how to make the basic fairy doll body. Then we'll need some thread for her clothing. I found this really pretty gold metallic floss that we'll be using for her clothes. And I have some stretchy gold decorative trim. We'll be using this to help attach her fairy wings. And then you're going to need a piece of floral stem wire. This is the same type of wire that you use to make the fairy doll. We'll be using this to help us with our wings. You'll need some white felt. Mine actually had a little bit of glitter on it, but plain white will work just perfectly. Some scissors and some wire cutters, something to measure with. You'll need the angel wing pattern that you can find by clicking on the link below. Print that out and trace it onto a light colored piece of cardstock. My glue gun set on low. And then you'll actually need 2 white flowers. I'll be using this big fluffy white flower for her skirt. I really liked how full this flower was. It almost looked a little bit lacy. And then you'll need a white daisy-like flower. We'll be cutting off the single petals and using them for our angel wings. And then some gold glitter spray paint. This part is optional, so it's totally just up to you. Okay, so the first step in making your angel flower fairy. After you've formed her body with the wire and the thread, you're going to add her clothing. So I have my really pretty gold metallic. Add a small dab of glue to her waist area, and you're going to start wrapping it around your doll in the same way that you wrapped the thread around her to create her body. So we're going to wrap all the way up to right underneath her arms, and then we're simply going to take the thread back and forth in a V to make almost some shoulder straps on her dress, and then take the thread back down to her waist and then create a little pair of shorts by going down just a little ways on each leg, back up to the center, and put another dab of glue and just trim off the excess. And she is now partially dressed. If at any point during this tutorial you feel like you need a little bit more basic instructions on creating the doll and putting her clothing on, please refer back to my basic fairy doll tutorial. It really does go through step by step a lot slower. Okay, the next step is to create the flower skirt. So I pulled my flower apart here, and there were a lot of very fluffy petals on this. And just start to kind of pull it apart. I actually had never seen a flower like this in the center with the 3 separate little pieces, but I pulled those apart and they were really pretty and looked kind of lacy. So separate them into piles of their sizes and decide how you want your skirt to lay. So I start with my bigger petals on the bottom. That will be the underneath layers of the skirt. And I decided to do 3 and just kind of layer those together. And then I put some of the shorter layers, the fluffier, lacier looking layers on the top. Make sure the holes are all lined up. And then we're going to cut a little X into the center of where the hole is to give us a bigger opening to put her feet through. So I like to hold it up to my doll, kind of get a feel for how it looks. And if I like it, I'm ready to cut the X into the center. So working with just a few petals at a time, fold the petals in half, lining up the hole in the center. Fold it in half, cut a small slit, and then you'll cut another small slit that goes down about 1/8 of an inch. You don't want to cut so far that you cut into the petals. and this will give us an X in the center to slip her feet through. So you'll follow those same steps with all of your petals. And once you have them ready, you're going to start by putting on the shorter or fluffier top layers. So start to slide those up to the waist of your doll in the order that you'd like them. Arrange the petals so they overlap nicely and so the petals don't lay directly on top of each other, but so that the layers alternate a little bit. This will give us a really full skirt. Now grab your glue gun and use small dabs of glue and place them between the layers of the petals right next to her waist and kind of pinch them into place. This will secure the dress to the doll, and you want to do that in the front and in the back, and then kind of go through in any other spots in the skirt that you feel like need to be a little bit more secure, put some more glue there. Then grab your angel wing pattern that you've traced onto a piece of cardstock. Make sure it's a light colored piece of cardstock. Once you have that cut out, you're going to cut out 2 pieces from your felt. So lay it right on top of your felt. I like to just overlap them and then hold it in place while I cut my 2 pieces out of my felt. So there are my 2 felt pieces, and then I'm going to take my pattern and I'm going to trim about 1/8 of an inch off the edges of the pattern because we're going to put this between the 2 pieces of felt and we don't want it poking out of the sides. So just trim a little bit off the edge of our pattern that we'll actually be using in the center of our wings. Adding the cardstock to the middle will actually make our wings a lot stronger and more sturdy. And now grab your glue gun and you're going to glue that onto one piece of your felt. So place a lot of glue on the cardstock and then lay it down on the felt. Press it down so it's nice and secure. And then before we place the rest of our felt back over the top, we're going to take some of the floral wire and we're going to place this in the wings so our wings will bend back and forth. So I just hold my floral wire up to my wings, and you want to cut a piece that's just smaller than the width of your cardstock. So using your wire cutters, just cut a small piece of the wire. This part is optional, but it's nice because it makes your fairy wings bend back and forth. And once I have that cut, I'm just going to take some glue, line it along the bottom of the cardstock, and place my wire right on top of that. Be careful not to burn yourself. Now we're going to use the gold stretch cord and make some straps for our angel wings. So measure 2 pieces out of the cord that measure 3 inches each and trim those off. Put a small dab of glue at the top of the fairy wings, just right of the center of the wings, and put the end of one of your pieces of cord there, and then do the same on the opposite side. Now in the end, we'll be looping these up and around so they slide over her arms, but before we do that, we want to add just the top part of the wings, the felt wings. So line just the top half of the wings above the wire with some glue and place just the top half onto the wings. You're just securing the cord in between the 2 pieces of felt. So you should have the 2 pieces of cord poking up there, and then grab one piece of the cord and loop it up and around so it makes a loop. And you're going to put a dab of glue just above the wire and slide the cord in and pinch it down. You'll need to add a little bit more glue to hold that into place. And this will give us our angel wing strap, and then you'll do the same thing on the other side. So up and around, place the end of the cord right above the wire, and then press the felt down and make sure that you go back and glue any spots that might need a little extra glue. And we have the base for our angel wings. You can see we have straps that will slide over your fairy's arms, and the wire allows your wings to bend. So the next step is to take apart our daisy, and we're going to cut every single petal off individually. So pull your flower apart. This one was a little tricky. I am just going to cut each single petal off of my flower. This will make it look like feathers on the angel wings. I actually tried doing these with feathers and I really liked how the flower petals looked opposed to the feathers. I ended up cutting all of the single petals apart and using all of them in my fairy wings. If you want your wings to be fuller, you might want to think about using more than one daisy and cutting more of the petals. So line some glue along the bottom of your fairy wing base, and you'll be working on the side that has the straps, and you're going to start lining them up, hanging over the edge about an inch in an even layer. And I ended up putting 4 of my petals across the bottom. Because all daisies are shaped a little bit different, pay attention to the size and shape of your flower petals because you might want to add more and you might need to add less to get the same look. So once you have them in a single layer across the bottom, you're going to add another layer over that. So make sure they're lined up horizontally, even at the bottom there. And we're going to add another layer, and we want them to overlap slightly. They'll hang over the layer you just put, leaving about a ½ an inch below. And I offset mine a little bit so they don't lay directly on top of each other. Continue to add the petals along the side until you reach the straps. So I believe I put another 4 petals, and then just trim off the ends there because they're going to start poking up over the top of our petals and we don't want that. And then we're going to add another layer, offsetting it once again. And don't worry about the edges poking up at the top, you can just trim those off. And then we're going to add our last layer. But for this layer, I'm actually going to trim my petals down because they're too big to go along the top and I want smaller petals. I just trim them a little bit so they're just nice and small, and we'll need 4 petals. And I'm going to line those up right along the top there and trim off the part that's poking up over the top. And then simply follow those same steps for the other side of the fairy wings. Paying attention to make sure that they line up evenly along the bottom on both sides. You'll notice that we're not putting any of the petals right in the middle between the straps. That's because this is where it will lay directly against the back of the fairy's body, and we want it to lay nice and flat, so don't worry about putting any feathers there. Okay, now the next step is to do the same thing on the other side, but this time we don't need to do it one side and then the other side. You can just do them all the way across the bottom and just add your 4 layers. So you can see our layer hangs down there in the back, covering that middle part that we didn't cover on the back side, and they should slip right over her arms. Now the last step is to style your fairy's hair. I always leave this to the end, otherwise it will get messed up while you're making your doll. So take a dab of glue, place it at the very top of her head where the wire is, push the head up so it stays in place right next to the hair, and then split the hair in half right where the wire is at the top of the head. So this will be her part. And then smooth each side down, and you're going to cut the hair right at the back in half, so you have 2 long strips of hair. Smooth it out carefully, and we'll be gluing that against her head. So take a small dab of glue and I spend quite a bit of time smoothing my thread out, and work in small sections. Don't use a ton of glue. Dab it gently, you don't want the glue poking through. If you ever do get glue that pokes through the hair, you can always use a hair dryer on the glue to help melt the glue and it won't show up as much. So I smooth my hair out on the other side, and I'm going to glue just in the front. Just a little dab of glue, and then gently press the hair down so it's in a single layer. And so you should have it attached in the front on both sides, but not so much in the back. So once you have the front done, you're going to kind of start pulling the hair gently to the back, and we're going to cover the back of her head with the hair. So smoothing it out once again. Once I have it nice and even, I'm going to take another little dab of glue and, working in small sections, just start to secure her hair in the back. Now you can actually style your fairy's hair in any way that you'd like. I decided to pull it over to the side because I didn't want it interfering with her wings. So once you have it all smooth, take it over to one side. And I'm going to glue down just a tiny bit more there so it lays nicely against the side of her head. And split your two pieces of thread evenly in half, smooth them out, and we're going to create a twist. So to do that, we're going to twist both pieces to the left. So you're twisting them both the same way, both to the left. Work gently with the hair, you don't want to pull the glue up. And now we're going to take both of those pieces and twist them together to the right. And what this will do is give us this cool little twisty braid. And do that all the way down to the bottom of your doll. If this is too stressful, you can put it in a ponytail and you can always just leave it down. For a tutorial on how to loop the hair up and around and leave it down in the back, please check out my basic fairy doll tutorial. I just thought this looked really cute. And then I'm going to take some of my gold thread that I used for her body, and I'm going to wrap it around the bottom of her hair a few times. So tie a square knot, left over right, right over left, then wrap it around several times and knot it off a couple more times and trim off the ends. And you're left with this really, really pretty twisty braid. Now smooth the ends of the hair because they're all scraggly and weird, and we want to trim that off. Smooth them out nicely and then evenly cut the bottom. And you have a beautiful little fairy doll. Now I decided to add one more thing. I decided a little halo would be cute. So I just took some of my stretchy cord and wrapped it around my fingers a few times. I took a small dab of glue and secured it all together. Be careful not to burn yourself. Made sure that it fit over her head. Just a small dab of glue there to hold them all together. Don't glue your fingers. And that just fits right over her head. Now this next step is optional also. I decided to add a little bit of glitter to her dress. So I moved her hair to the back and spritzed a little bit of the glitter on her dress, and then I also added some glitter to the fairy wings, and I actually put a lot of glitter on the fairy wings. It just added some fun sparkle and made my angel sparkly and lovely. And there she is with her wings and her little halo. And that's it, guys. You have a beautiful angel fairy doll. This fairy doll did have a few extra steps, more than my other fairy dolls, but I think it's well worth it. I love her angel wings, and I think she just turned out so beautiful and so fun for the holidays. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any comments or questions or ideas for fairy dolls, please post those below. If you haven't subscribed, please do, because that would be awesome. Check out some of my other tutorials, and we'll see you next time.